They shot the wrong woman. No warning, no argument, no time to understand why. Just a sharp crack outside Northside Hospital, Atlanta, loud enough to split a normal evening in half. Lily had just stepped out after a double shift. Her feet hurt. Her shoulders ached. She was already texting Bruno back. "Dinner tonight. Wear something that makes you look at me the way you do when you're pretending not to smile." She rolled her eyes at the message. That man. She didn't even see the car slow down. The sound came first. A crack. Not fireworks. Not construction. Something tighter. Sharper. Her body reacted before her mind did. Heat bloomed in her side. She blinked. What? Her hand moved instinctively to her scrubs. Warm. Too warm. Her knees buckled. Someone screamed. She tried to breathe, but the air felt thick, heavy. "I'm okay," she tried to say. It came out smaller than she expected. I just... The pavement rushed toward her, and for a second, just a second, she felt embarrassed, like she was causing a scene. Then the pain caught up. Across Atlanta traffic, Bruno's phone vibrated against the leather console of his sedan. He almost ignored it. Almost. He glanced at the caller ID. "Operations Director." He answered calmly. "Yeah." A pause. On the other end, someone inhaled sharply. "Sir, there's been a shooting outside Northside." Silence. Bruno didn't react. Not yet. And the victim matches Lily's description. The velvet ring box slipped from his fingers. It didn't fall far, just landed softly on the passenger seat. He stared at it. "Say that again." She just clocked out. Witnesses confirmed. Outside his window, Atlanta moved like nothing had shifted. A couple laughed crossing the street. A bus hissed to a stop. Somewhere, music played from an open car window. Inside the sedan, something ancient in Bruno went still. Not panic, not fear. Stillness. "Status," he said quietly. "She's alive." A breath. But there's something else. That was the moment. Not the shooting. Not the call. That sentence. There's something else. Bruno's jaw tightened, just slightly. What else? "Doctors are evaluating. It's serious. Alive." Alive was enough. He started the engine. And something in him, something retired, disciplined, buried deep under tailored suits and clean contracts, opened its eyes. The man Lily loved believed in security systems, cameras, perimeter checks. The man waking up inside him believed in consequences. And right now, someone had made a mistake. If this opening already has your chest tight, you might want to stay, because this wasn't random. This wasn't street violence. They shot the wrong woman, and they had no idea who her husband was. Bruno made it to the hospital in under 8 minutes. He didn't remember the drive, didn't remember traffic lights, didn't remember parking. He only remembered walking. Fast, controlled, not running. He doesn't run. "Sir, you can't." "Where is she?" Not loud, just final. A nurse hesitated. "Are you family?" A pause. He could have explained. Could have clarified. Could have... Yes. The word left no room for debate. They moved. Hallways blurred. Shoes against tile. Voices low. Urgent. When the doctor finally stepped out, Bruno studied his face first. He didn't ask questions. He read people for a living. "She's stable." The doctor began carefully. "Stable. Good. But..." There it was again. That word. But Bruno felt it before he heard it. There's another factor. His hands folded behind his back. Controlled. What factor? A small inhale. "She's pregnant." No reaction. Not at first. The doctor kept talking. Something about early term, about monitoring, about viability. But Bruno didn't hear any of it. Pregnant. Lily. Pregnant. He swallowed once. "She didn't tell me." "It's very early," the doctor replied gently. She may not have known yet. The hallway felt narrower. He leaned back against the wall slowly. Not weak. Just recalibrating, pregnant, and, on the passenger seat of his car, waiting, was a velvet ring box. He had planned to propose tonight. He almost laughed, not from humor, from disbelief. He had rehearsed the words. He had imagined her pretending not to smile. He had pictured the way her eyes soften when she tries to act composed. Now she was behind a surgical door, and someone had put a bullet in her body, and she was carrying his child. He pressed his fingers briefly to his eyes. Just a second, just enough to feel it. Then he lowered his hand, calm again, but something colder now. Let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to protect someone, truly protect them, and still failed? Have you ever believed you left your past behind, only for it to find the person you love most? Because sometimes, what you bury doesn't stay buried. Sometimes it waits. They thought they hurt a nurse, a woman in scrubs, a quiet life. But they awakened something far worse. And if you believe love is something worth standing for, even when it costs you, I need you to do something right now, like this video. Seriously. It helps YouTube push stories like this out so more people can hear them. And comment, protect what's mine, if you believe some love isn't negotiable. And if you're new here, subscribe. Because this story, we're just getting started. And trust me, when two worlds collide, the world of healing, and the world Bruno came from, someone always underestimates the wrong person. Before she was a nurse at Northside Hospital, Atlanta, before she stood under sterile lights and steady monitors, Lily was a little girl in South Atlanta, learning how to hold her spine straight when life leaned heavy. She grew up in a narrow brick house off Cascade Road, paint chipped along the porch railing, screen door that never quite shut all the way, summers thick with Georgia heat that pressed against your lungs until you learned how to breathe slower, deeper. Her grandmother used to sit in a rocking chair near the window every evening, Bible open, glasses low on her nose, watching everything. "Baby," she would say without looking up, "the world will test you, so you better know who you are before it tries to tell you." Lily didn't always understand it back then. She was 8, maybe 9. She just knew Grandma said things like they mattered, and in that house, words did matter. Money was tight, not dramatic, just careful. Every grocery trip calculated, every bill paid with quiet relief. Lily watched her mother work double shifts at a rehab center across town, watched her come home, exhausted, but still braid her hair at night. "You tired?" Lily once asked. Her mother smiled softly. "Of course I'm tired." A pause. But tired don't mean defeated. That stayed with her. In middle school, kids teased her for bringing home-cooked lunches instead of cafeteria trays. In high school, boys called her intimidating. She was 15 the first time someone said that word to her. "You don't smile enough," a boy told her during chemistry class. "You look like you judging everybody." She blinked at him. "I am." He laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. Lily learned early that people were uncomfortable around quiet strength. They preferred noise, flash, something easier to categorize. But she didn't shrink. Not when a guidance counselor suggested she lower her expectations for college because tuition would be hard. Not when a professor later assumed she was in the wrong lecture hall. Not when hospital patients looked past her badge and asked to see the nurse. "I am the nurse," she would say evenly. Not defensive, just clear. Resilience for Lily wasn't loud. It wasn't fists raised or voices elevated. It was consistency. It was showing up. It was sending money home even when no one asked. It was studying anatomy at 2 a.m. with tired eyes and steady focus. It was choosing not to harden completely. Because here's the thing, Lily could have become sharp, cynical, closed off. There were moments she almost did, but her grandmother's voice would rise in her memory. "Know who you are." So she did. She knew she was capable. She knew she was worthy. She knew softness didn't equal weakness, and that mattered, especially later. Especially when Bruno walked into her life with controlled silence and eyes that missed nothing. There's a difference between being hard And being steady, Lily was steady. At work, she held hands through chemo sessions, sat beside elderly men who pretended not to be afraid, adjusted blankets for women who apologized for crying. "It's okay," she would whisper. "You don't have to be brave right now." Her voice had this calm in it, not performative, not rehearsed, just present. One night, a teenage patient refused treatment. Angry, scared, loud about it. 2 nurses stepped back. Lily didn't. She pulled a chair up instead, sat down, waited. Didn't rush to fix him, didn't flood him with instructions. After a few minutes, he glanced at her. "What?" he muttered. She shrugged slightly. "I can sit here all night." A beat. "You mad?" He rolled his eyes. She nodded slowly. "Yeah. I would be too." Something shifted, not dramatically. Just enough. That was Lily. Strength that didn't announce itself. Softness that didn't beg permission. She could argue her point in a boardroom and then turn around and cook Sunday dinner for her mother without making it look like sacrifice. When Bruno first watched her at a fundraiser, the way she laughed, head tilted slightly back, shoulders relaxed, he noticed something. She didn't perform femininity, she inhabited it. And when someone tried to talk over her during a donor discussion, she didn't raise her voice. She simply finished her sentence, steady, unmoved. The man eventually quieted, not because she dominated him, because she didn't react. That kind of composure unsettles people. It unsettled Bruno too, if he was honest. He was used to women leaning into his confidence, used to admiration, used to fascination with his mystery. Lily didn't do that. She looked at him directly, assessed, measured. When he opened doors for her, she thanked him, but didn't mistake courtesy for character. When he paid for dinner, she noticed the restaurant choice, not the price tag. And when he tried once, just once, to redirect a conversation away from himself, she caught it. "You deflect," she said calmly. He paused. "Do the first, yes, no accusation, just observation." Most people would have softened after that, backtracked, smiled it away. Lily didn't, because her strength wasn't about dominating a room. It was about refusing to disappear inside one. And yet, she still cried at movies, still laughed too loud when something genuinely amused her, still called her grandmother every Sunday, still curled her legs under her on the couch like she'd done since childhood. She could hold pain, but she didn't live inside it. That balance, that rare mix of grounded confidence and open-hearted warmth, is what made her dangerous to underestimate. People see softness and assume fragility. They see composure and assume control. They rarely look closer. And no one who looked at Lily that evening outside the hospital saw a target. They saw a nurse. Scrubs, tired eyes, phone in hand. They didn't see the layers. They didn't see the woman raised on discipline and dignity. They didn't see the quiet steel beneath her calm. And that was their first mistake. Lily didn't wake up one morning suspicious of men. It happened slowly, quietly, like noticing a pattern you didn't ask to see. In college at Georgia State University, she dated a business major who loved telling people how driven she was. At first it sounded like admiration. "You're different," he'd say, smiling. "Most girls don't think long-term like you." She'd smile back, unsure whether that was a compliment or a category. He liked that she studied late, liked that professors respected her, liked introducing her to his friends, until the night she corrected him. They were at a small gathering near Midtown, music low, red cups, casual. He misquoted a statistic about healthcare policy. She tilted her head. "That's not accurate." He laughed. "It is." "No," she said calmly. "The study showed." "Lily," he interrupted, smile tightening. "It's not that serious." A pause. She felt it then. Not anger. Shift. She finished her sentence anyway. The room got quiet. Later, walking her to her car, he sighed. You don't have to prove you're the smartest person in every room. She blinked. I wasn't proving anything. Well, it felt like it. That word again. Felt, not truth, not fact. Just insecurity wrapped in accusation. That relationship didn't last. Neither did the next one. There was the entrepreneur who admired her independence, until she wouldn't rearrange her hospital shifts to attend his networking events. There's flexibility if you really care, he told her once. She stared at him. People in ICU don't reschedule emergencies. He didn't laugh. He didn't like that she didn't bend. There was another man who said he loved her strong energy, until he realized strong energy meant boundaries. You don't need a man, he muttered during an argument. She didn't flinch. I want one. There's a difference. Silence. Men often mistook her stability for competition. They saw her degrees, her poise, the way she didn't beg for attention, and something inside them tightened. Not all men, but enough. Enough for her to learn to watch closely. Enough for her to notice when admiration slowly turned into resentment, when encouragement turned into subtle critiques. You could be softer. You don't have to challenge everything. You're intimidating. Intimidating. She used to wonder what that meant. Did it mean she asked questions? Did it mean she didn't giggle on cue? Did it mean she expected consistency? Or did it mean she wouldn't shrink to make someone else feel tall? By the time she met Bruno, she wasn't bitter, but she was careful. She didn't melt when he opened doors, didn't swoon when he paid for dinner, didn't chase when he grew quiet. She watched, measured his reactions when she disagreed, noted how he handled correction. The first time she challenged him, really challenged him, was over something small, restaurant choice. He ordered for her without asking. The waiter left. She leaned back slowly. Why'd you do that? He paused. I thought you'd like it. That's not what I asked. A beat. He studied her. You don't like not being consulted? No, she said evenly. I don't like being assumed. There it was. The moment men usually bristled. Bruno didn't. He nodded once. You're right. No defensiveness. No ego spike. Just adjustment. She noticed. Didn't smile about it, but she noticed. Still, she didn't trust easily. Not because she feared men, because she understood them. Understood how quickly admiration could curdle into control when a woman refused to become smaller. And Lily had promised herself something years ago, sitting on her childhood bed after another breakup, staring at the ceiling fan spin slowly overhead. I will not shrink, she whispered. A quiet vow, not dramatic, not loud, just final. So when Bruno entered her life with his stillness and secrets, she didn't fall. She evaluated. Lily's strength wasn't loud, but it wasn't effortless either. There were nights she lay awake in her apartment in Buckhead, city noise humming faintly outside, staring at the ceiling. Not anxious, just thinking. She replayed conversations in her head, not obsessively, carefully. When Bruno grew distant some evenings, not cold, just somewhere else, she felt it. He would sit on her couch, posture relaxed but eyes calculating something invisible. You're here, she said once quietly. But you're not. He looked at her. A long pause. I'm just tired. She watched his jaw flex. That wasn't the whole truth, but she didn't press. Instead, she tucked her legs beneath her and studied him in silence. Because Lily understood something important. Not all battles are external. Some are internal. And sometimes, you give someone space not because you're weak, but because you're listening. Still, she wasn't naive. There were moments when doubt brushed against her ribs. Softly, like a question she didn't want to ask out loud. What are you not telling me? She would breathe through it. Slow inhale. Slow exhale. Her grandmother's voice again. Know who you are. So she grounded herself in facts. He showed up when he said he would. He listened when she spoke. He never mocked her ambition. He never flinched when she corrected him. But she felt layers in him, locked compartments. And Lily had learned the hard way, that loving a man with compartments can mean discovering what's inside at the worst possible time. One evening, rain streaking against her window, she stood barefoot in her kitchen thinking about him. The way he scanned exits, the way he positioned himself between her and doors without seeming obvious, the way his eyes sharpened when someone brushed too close. "Who are you?" she whispered to herself, not suspicious, curious, concerned, because loving someone powerful is different from loving someone ordinary. Power carries weight, and weight shifts balance. She pressed her palms against the counter, breathed. "I won't disappear," she murmured, not to him, to herself. That was her quiet promise. If he had shadows, she would face them. If he had a past, she would require honesty. And if loving him ever meant losing herself, well, she wouldn't choose it. That's the thing about Lily. She could love deeply, but she would not abandon herself in the process. So when the bullet tore through her side, outside Northside, when her knees hit pavement, when confusion blurred into pain, she didn't think, "Why me?" Her first fractured thought was simpler. Stay awake. Even bleeding, she was calculating. Even falling, she was fighting. Because fragility was never part of her design, and anyone who assumed otherwise, they didn't know her at all. It was 3 months before the shooting, 3 months before sirens, before hospital corridors felt personal, before bullets made everything heavier. The charity gala was hosted inside the glass atrium of Northside Hospital, Atlanta, the same building that would later hold Lily's blood on its pavement. That night, though, it shimmered. Soft gold lighting, white tablecloths, low music weaving between conversations, doctors in tailored suits, donors with polite laughter, administrators shaking hands that smelled faintly of expensive cologne. Lily wasn't there to impress anyone. She was there because pediatrics needed funding. She wore a deep emerald dress, simple, structured, no dramatic cutouts. Her curls framed her face naturally, unapologetically. She moved through the room with ease, not performing, not hunting attention, just present. She spoke to an elderly donor about oncology expansion, voice steady, eyes engaged. "Every bed added means someone doesn't have to wait," she explained. The woman nodded slowly. "You believe in this?" "I work there," Lily replied. Belief isn't optional. Across the room, Bruno watched. Not obviously, not in a way that would attract gossip. He stood near the balcony doors, posture relaxed, one hand lightly holding a glass of water he hadn't touched. Dark suit, white shirt, no tie, composed. His security firm had been contracted for event oversight, discreet, layered. Most guests assumed he was just another wealthy sponsor. He preferred it that way. But he wasn't watching the room anymore. He was watching her. Not her dress, not her smile. Her awareness, the way she angled her body when someone interrupted her. The way she shifted weight subtly when a man stepped too close. The way she scanned name tags before engaging, gathering information first. She didn't know she was doing it. But he noticed. He always noticed. A man brushed past her too abruptly near the champagne table. Bruno's body reacted before his mind did, shoulders tightening slightly, gaze sharpening. Lily steadied herself, turned. "Excuse you," she said calmly, not sharp, not timid, just enough. The man muttered an apology and kept moving. Bruno's jaw eased. Interesting. She wasn't fragile. She wasn't reactive either. She corrected energy without escalating it. That required confidence. Later, she stepped outside onto the balcony for air. The city lights of Atlanta shimmered beyond the glass. Traffic flowed below. She inhaled deeply. These events always drained her a little. Too many smiles. Too many half-true conversations. She leaned lightly against the railing. "Not really your scene?" The voice came from her left. Calm, measured. She didn't startle. She had sensed him approach. She turned her head slowly. "No," she said. "It's my scene." A pause. "I just prefer honesty over performance." He studied her. "And which one is this?" She gestured vaguely toward the ballroom. You tell me. A flicker of something almost like amusement touched his mouth. That was their first moment. No fireworks, no dramatic pause. Just two observant people recognizing something familiar in each other. He didn't introduce himself immediately. Neither did she. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was evaluative. She glanced at him fully now. Noticed his posture first. Balanced, alert, even relaxed. He looked ready. You're not here for the wine, she said. His brow lifted slightly. And what am I here for? She tilted her head. You're counting? Exits, entry points, staff movement, a quiet beat. He didn't deny it, didn't confirm it either. She smiled faintly. Occupational habit. That was the first crack in his composure. Small, controlled, yes. Her eyes narrowed slightly. What occupation? He held her gaze. Security. The word landed neutral, but not complete. She felt that. Didn't push, not yet. The music inside swelled slightly as doors opened and closed behind them. Neither moved. Something unspoken hovered between them. Curiosity, measured interest, not flirtation, not yet. He noticed her hands. No ring. He noticed the way she met his eyes. No hesitation. He noticed she wasn't trying to impress him. That alone set her apart. And Lily, she noticed that he watched without leering, assessed without posturing. That intrigued her, because most men looked, few observed, and fewer still did it quietly. The night had only just begun, and already something subtle had shifted. So, she said, folding her arms lightly. Security. Yes, that's vague. It's intentional. She laughed softly. Of course it is. He didn't smile fully, but his eyes warmed. You're direct. I don't like wasting time. Efficient. No, she corrected gently. Honest. A beat. He studied her again. And what do you do when you're not analyzing men on balconies? I'm not analyzing you. His expression didn't change. You are. She exhaled through her nose, almost amused. Fine. I'm a nurse. Here? Yes. He nodded once. That explains the conviction inside. She glanced toward the ballroom. You mean the fundraising speeches? I mean the way you speak. She paused. Not flattered. Curious. What about it? You don't pitch, he said. You state. That observation caught her off guard. You watch people closely. I have to. Why? A flicker there. Quick. Almost invisible. Risk management. That's still vague. He tilted his head slightly. You don't like partial answers. No, she said calmly. They usually mean something's missing. Silence settled briefly. Not tense. Waited. He shifted his stance slightly, positioning himself subtly between her and the main entrance doors. She noticed. There it was again. That instinctive movement. You do that automatically, she said. Do what? Place yourself strategically. It's habit. From what? A longer pause this time. He looked past her briefly, scanning the crowd inside. When he returned his gaze to her, it was steady. Training. What kind? He exhaled lightly. The kind that pays attention. She stepped closer. Not intimate, just intentional. That's not an answer. No, he agreed. She held his gaze. You don't trust easily. His jaw flexed once. Should I? She considered that. Depends. On what? On whether you're planning to lie to me. That did it. Not shock, but recognition. He hadn't expected that. A faint smile curved his mouth. And if I were, I'd know. Confidence, not arrogance. He believed her. That unsettled him more than the challenge. Inside, applause rose from the ballroom. Someone finishing a speech. Neither of them moved. Do you always interrogate strangers? He asked. Only the ones pretending not to be strangers. Another pause. He studied her face. Natural curls framing a woman who clearly didn't adjust herself to fit rooms. You're used to men being intimidated. he said quietly. She didn't flinch. Some are. And you? I'm not responsible for their insecurities. There it was again. That steadiness. He found himself intrigued, not because she challenged him, because she did it without aggression, without need. Bruno, he said finally. Lily, he nodded. Of course she was. The name fit. Will I see you again? He asked. She didn't answer immediately. She let the question breathe. Are you going to give me full answers next time? A quiet moment. No. She smiled faintly. Then, maybe, and just like that, the foundation was set. Not dramatic, not loud, but layered. Two people who saw more than most. Two people who didn't flinch at directness. Two people who recognized depth without advertising it. Chemistry wasn't explosive. It was deliberate. And somewhere beneath Bruno's controlled exterior, he knew one thing with unsettling clarity. This woman would not be easy to mislead. Their second meeting wasn't planned. At least, not officially. A week after the gala, Lily walked into a coffee shop near Peachtree Street before her shift. Early morning. Soft jazz playing low, the smell of roasted beans thick in the air. She ordered black coffee, no sugar, no performance. When she turned around, there he was, already seated, back to the wall, clear view of the entrance. Of course. She didn't smile immediately. She just walked over. You follow all the nurses you meet at charity events? She asked. Bruno looked up slowly. No. A pause. Just the observant ones. She slid into the chair across from him without asking. You picked this seat intentionally? Yes. So you can see everyone? Yes. And the exits? Another pause. Yes. She leaned back. You even clocked the barista's nervous habit. His brow lifted slightly. Which one? She taps the counter twice before handing drinks over. He glanced toward the counter briefly. She watched his eyes. There it was. Calculation. Recognition. You noticed, he said. I notice things. So do I. That's different. How? You notice threats. And you? She held his gaze. I notice people. Silence. He didn't deny it. Didn't deflect. But she wasn't finished. You also check reflections, she added calmly. A faint stillness settled in his shoulders. In mirrors. Windows. Car glass. He didn't respond. Just watched her watching him. You positioned yourself near the hallway when that guy bumped into me at the gala, she continued. You adjusted your stance when someone raised their voice behind us. You don't relax, even when you look relaxed. A breath. Why? The question wasn't playful. It wasn't flirtation. It was assessment. He could lie, offer something polished, but something about the way she asked, it made lying feel unnecessary. I've seen what happens when people stop paying attention, he said quietly. She didn't look away. And I don't intend to. She studied him. There was no bragging in his tone, no theatrical weight, just fact. Who taught you that? She asked softly. A longer pause this time. His jaw shifted slightly. Experience. That's vague again. Yes. She exhaled lightly. Bruno. He waited. You don't trust the room? No. Ever? Rarely. Why? He hesitated. Not visibly, but internally, she could feel it. Because when a man calculates before answering something simple, there's history attached. I trust patterns, he said instead. And what pattern do I fit? He looked at her carefully. You don't flinch. She blinked once. That's your assessment. Yes. She tilted her head slightly. You're studying me. Yes. She nodded slowly. Good. That surprised him. Good? I prefer to be seen clearly. That landed somewhere deeper than he expected. Most people feared being studied. She welcomed it. But she wasn't naive. She leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice just enough. Just make sure you're not looking for something that isn't there. He didn't answer immediately. The coffee shop door chimed as someone entered. He glanced briefly. Habit. When he returned his focus to her, Something in his expression had sharpened. "You think I'm hiding something," he said. "I think," she replied carefully. "You're trained to—" A quiet beat between them. Not hostile, not fragile. Just real. She wasn't accusing. She was observing. And he, for the first time in a long time, felt examined in a way that wasn't superficial. She saw patterns too, and she wasn't intimidated by them. That intrigued him more than he expected. They left the coffee shop together, not holding hands, not brushing shoulders, just walking side by side toward the parking lot. The morning air was cool. Atlanta traffic already humming. "You're uncomfortable with incomplete answers," he said as they approached her car. "Yes, but you haven't walked away." She paused near her door. "No." Why? She considered that, because she'd asked herself the same thing. Why wasn't she already distancing herself from a man who clearly had compartments? "Because," she said slowly, "you don't feel dishonest." He watched her carefully. "That's specific." "Yes. You think there's a difference?" "There is." She unlocked her car but didn't open it yet. "Dishonesty is active," she continued. "Avoidance is defensive." He didn't interrupt. "You avoid certain topics," she said, "but you don't fabricate." A faint exhale escaped him. "That's accurate." She nodded once. "So when you say security, I know that's not the whole picture. It's enough." "For now," she corrected. A pause. The city noise filled the space between them. He studied her face, searching for fear, for hesitation, for anything that suggested she might bolt. He found none. "You really want the full answer," he said quietly. "Yes. And if it complicates things?" She held his gaze. "Then we deal with that." His jaw flexed. "You say that like you've handled complications before." "I have." He believed her, because she didn't say it with drama. She said it with history. He stepped slightly closer, not invading, just narrowing distance. "I own a private security firm," he said. "Corporate contracts, event oversight, asset protection. All true, all incomplete." She listened carefully. "Before that?" she asked. A subtle hesitation, barely visible, but present. "I worked in government-adjacent operations." Her brow lifted faintly. "That's vague again." "Yes. Are we talking desk job or something else?" He met her eyes. "Something else." She let that sit. "Dangerous?" Another pause. "Sometimes. And now?" "Now I build systems so other people don't have to think about danger." That part felt closer to truth. She searched his expression. "Do you miss it?" The question surprised him. He didn't answer immediately. Did he? He remembered the structure, the clarity, the edge of it. But he also remembered the cost. "No," he said finally. She studied him for a long moment. "Good." That single word carried weight, because she meant it. If he missed it too much, she would have walked. She opened her car door halfway. "Bruno." "Yes. If your past ever threatens my peace." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. He understood. "You'll leave," he said. "Yes." No theatrics, no ultimatum tone, just truth. He nodded once. "That's fair." A small silence settled. The kind that isn't awkward, just reflective. "You're not what I expected," he said quietly. She almost smiled. "Most men say that." "I'm not most men." She held his gaze. "I know." And for the first time since he left the world that trained him to anticipate betrayal, Bruno felt something unfamiliar. Not vulnerability, not exactly, but consideration, because Lily wasn't impressed by mystery. She required clarity, and something told him, if he wasn't careful, she would demand the full truth one day, and when she did, he wouldn't be able to deflect. Bruno did not rush Lily. That alone separated him from the others. No dramatic confessions after the second date. No sudden "I've never felt this way" speeches. Just consistency. He texted when he said he would, called when she got off late shifts, showed up 5 minutes early, always. The first official dinner wasn't extravagant. A quiet restaurant in Buckhead. Low lighting. No crowd heavy enough to drown conversation. He pulled her chair out. She noticed. Not the gesture. The intention behind it. "You're intentional," she said once the waiter left. "I try to be, with everything." "Yes." She studied him over the rim of her glass. "That sounds exhausting." "It can be." A faint pause. "Then why do it?" He leaned back slightly. "Because most mistakes happen when people move without thinking." She tilted her head. "And most regrets happen when people think too long." That lingered between them. He didn't argue. He considered it. Their courtship unfolded in measured layers. Museum afternoons, Sunday brunches, walks through Piedmont Park where neither of them felt pressured to fill silence. One evening, sitting on a bench near the tree line, she asked quietly, "Why don't you drink much?" He glanced at her. "I like clarity, control, awareness." She nodded slowly. "You're always aware." "Yes." She didn't smile. "That must get heavy." He looked at her then. Really looked. "You're the first person who's called it that." She shrugged slightly. "Being alert all the time isn't freedom." He didn't respond immediately, because she was right, and he didn't like how quickly she saw it. Still, he didn't withdraw, didn't create distance. Instead, he adjusted in small ways. He let her choose the restaurant once, without researching it first. Let her drive when they went to dinner in Midtown. Let himself sit with his back partially exposed in her apartment, though he still chose angles instinctively. She noticed. Always. "You're trying," she said one night as they sat on her couch, the television playing something neither of them was watching. "Yes." "For what?" He hesitated. Not because he didn't know, because saying it meant something. "For you." Her breath slowed slightly. "That's new. For me, too." She leaned her head back against the couch cushion. "Don't try to become someone else. I'm not." "Good." A beat. "I don't want a performance. You won't get one." Their connection wasn't built on adrenaline. It was built on attention. He learned how she took her coffee. Black, no sugar. She learned that he preferred quiet mornings over loud nights. He discovered she called her grandmother every Sunday. She discovered he never slept deeply, always light enough to wake at the smallest sound. "Bad dreams?" she asked once, softly. He looked at the ceiling. "Sometimes." "About what?" A pause. "Work." She didn't press. Not yet. Because this was slow, and slow meant safe. But with safety came attachment, and attachment meant risk. And neither of them were naive about that. By the 6th week, the tension between them wasn't about uncertainty. It was about restraint. He walked her to her apartment door one night after dinner. They stood there longer than necessary, neither reaching, neither stepping back. "You're still watching me," she said quietly. "Yes. Like I'm a problem you haven't solved yet." A faint exhale. "I don't see you as a problem." "Then what?" He took a breath. "Something worth understanding." Her pulse shifted slightly. That landed. She stepped closer, close enough to feel the warmth of him. "You don't have to decode me," she whispered. "I'm not trying to decode. What are you trying to do?" He hesitated. That hesitation told her more than any confident line would have. "I'm trying," he said slowly, "not to ruin this." Her eyes softened, just slightly. "Well," she paused. "Then don't." That was the first crack in the slow burn. Not explosive, but inevitable. The rain started just after 9 p.m. Heavy, sudden. Atlanta storms rarely ask permission. Lily had come over to Bruno's condo after her shift. Scrubs swapped for soft leggings and one of his oversized shirts he'd tossed her the week before. "Stay," he had said casually. She had. They stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows watching rain blur the skyline. City lights bending through water. Thunder low and distant. "You ever let yourself relax?" she asked without turning around. "When necessary." She smiled faintly. "That's not what I asked." Silence. He walked closer. Stopped just behind her, close enough to feel her breath shift. What does relaxing look like to you? He asked. She turned slowly, not calculating. He didn't deny it. Her fingers brushed lightly against his chest. Not rushed, not claiming, testing. You're always braced, she murmured. He swallowed once. You make me less so. A quiet beat. Her eyes lifted to his. You don't have to hold everything alone. That sentence almost undid him. Not because it was dramatic, because it was gentle. And he wasn't used to gentle. He reached for her slowly, giving her space to move away. She didn't. The kiss started careful, measured, like both of them understood the weight of it. No urgency, no heat trying to prove something, just contact. His hand rested at her waist. Hers moved to his jaw. Rain tapped against the glass behind them. When he deepened the kiss, it wasn't aggressive. It was curious, learning. Her breath caught, not startled, just aware. She stepped closer, pressed fully against him. And, for a moment, the world outside the windows didn't exist. He lifted her carefully onto the kitchen counter, paused, searching her face. Still okay? He asked quietly. She nodded. Yes, but she didn't look away. She held his gaze, grounded, present. When his forehead rested briefly against hers, she whispered something against his mouth. Don't you dare treat me like something temporary. There it was. Not insecurity, boundary. His hands stilled. He pulled back, just enough to look at her fully. I wouldn't survive that mistake, he said. No smile, no flirtation, just truth. She studied him, making sure. You don't get to disappear after this, she added softly. I won't. Thunder rolled in the distance. Their breathing slowed together. What happened next wasn't rushed, wasn't about possession. It was about choosing. Hands exploring gently. Pauses filled with eye contact instead of words. Her fingers tracing the tension in his shoulders. His hand resting at the small of her back like anchoring himself there. When she pressed her forehead to his chest, listening to his heartbeat, she murmured, You're not as cold as you pretend. I don't pretend. A soft sound, almost a challenge. He exhaled. You make it difficult to stay guarded. That's the point. She slid off the counter eventually, rested her head briefly against his shoulder. Rain still falling. City still alive outside. Inside, something shifted. Not just attraction, attachment. And attachment is where stakes begin. Because when someone becomes more than temporary, loss becomes possible. The words didn't disappear after that night. They lingered, not in accusation, in expectation. A week later, they sat across from each other at a quiet rooftop lounge overlooking downtown Atlanta. The air was cool, city lights blinking steadily below. Lily watched him as he listened to her talk about a pediatric case that had finally stabilized. You get this look, she said mid-sentence. What look? Like you're memorizing me. He didn't deny it. I don't like wasting good information. She raised an eyebrow. I'm not until... A faint pause. I know. She leaned back slowly. You say that, but sometimes you engage like this is temporary. His expression shifted, subtle. How? Like you're bracing for an exit. Silence. He glanced toward the skyline briefly. When he looked back at her, she was still studying him. No smile. No playfulness now. Just clarity. I don't invest lightly, he said carefully. That's not what I asked. She folded her hands loosely on the table. Are you here because you're interested, or because I'm interesting? That question landed deeper than she intended. He felt it. She saw that. She continued, I don't want to be a distraction, or a phase, or something that fits neatly into your schedule until it doesn't. Her voice didn't shake, but it softened slightly on the last sentence, just enough to reveal vulnerability. That was rare for her. He leaned forward. You're not a phase. You sure? Yes. How? He inhaled slowly, because explaining that would require honesty beyond comfort. You're steady, he said. You don't react for attention. You don't chase reassurance. You don't try to be impressive. She watched him carefully. You make me consider permanence, he added quietly. Her breath paused for half a second. Permanence, she repeated softly. Yes. And that doesn't scare you? He hesitated. That was honest. It does. She appreciated that more than false confidence. Good, she murmured. He blinked. Good? If it didn't scare you, it wouldn't matter. The wind moved lightly across the rooftop. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then she reached across the table, took his hand, deliberate, grounded. Don't treat me like something temporary, she repeated. Calmer now, but firmer. I won't. You don't get to vanish if this gets heavy. I won't. You don't get to retreat into silence when things get real. That one hit, because he did that. He knew it. I'll try, he said quietly. She squeezed his hand once. Trying is fine. Disappearing isn't. There was no drama in her tone. Just boundary. And something inside Bruno, something long accustomed to contingency plans and emotional distance, shifted, because she wasn't asking for promises wrapped in poetry. She was asking for presence. And presence is harder than protection. It happened 2 nights later. Lily was curled on his couch, legs tucked under her, flipping through a medical journal while he reviewed something on his laptop. The condo was quiet. No television, no music, just the faint hum of the city beyond the windows. She glanced up at him. You ever think about quitting? He didn't look up immediately. Quitting? What? Security? He closed the laptop slowly. That's random. No, she said softly. It's not. A pause. You don't just work security, she continued. You carry it. He leaned back slightly. What does that mean? You anticipate. You evaluate. You prepare for worst-case scenarios before they happen. That's called being responsible. It's also called living like something's always about to go wrong. Silence. He looked at her carefully. She wasn't accusing. She was concerned. You've seen things, she said gently. He exhaled once. Yes. More than you tell me. Yes. She waited, didn't push, just held space. He stood and walked toward the window, hands in pockets, Atlanta lights stretching below. There was a time, he began slowly, when every decision had weight beyond me. She remained still, listening. I worked operations that weren't public. She said nothing, encouraging him without interrupting. You learn quickly that hesitation can cost lives. His jaw tightened slightly. And when that becomes normal, he continued, voice lower now, it's hard to turn off. She rose quietly from the couch, walked toward him, stopped a few feet away. You don't have to tell me everything tonight, she said. He turned to face her. But don't shut me out. That landed heavier than the confession. He looked at her, really looked. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't overwhelmed. She wasn't impressed. She was steady. And for a brief moment, he almost told her everything. The classified deployments, the missions that didn't make headlines, the names he still remembered, the weight of decisions that had no perfect outcomes. His lips parted slightly. He stopped, because saying it out loud would make it real in this space. And if it entered this space, it might contaminate it. I left that world, he said instead. That's not what I asked. Her voice was soft, but it carried truth. He looked away briefly, then back at her. There are parts of my past that are complicated. She stepped closer. Complicated doesn't scare me. It should. Why? Another pause. Because explaining that meant admitting danger, admitting history, admitting unfinished business. He reached for her hand instead, held it gently. I'm not proud of everything I've done, he said quietly. She absorbed that. You're not defined by everything you've done either. That response caught him off guard. She squeezed his hand lightly. When you're ready, she added. I'll listen. No pressure, no demand, just invitation. And that was almost more difficult than interrogation. He nodded once. Okay, but he didn't continue. Not that night. Because vulnerability requires timing, and Bruno had spent too many years measuring risk. Still, he felt it now. The shift. Lily wasn't just someone he desired. She was becoming someone he trusted. And trust creates exposure. Exposure creates stakes. And stakes, well, stakes make everything more dangerous. Before Lily ever stood on that balcony, before rain softened Bruno's guarded edges, there was Julie. Not soft, not steady. Julie met Bruno years earlier, long before charity galas and corporate security contracts. Back when his life wasn't polished. Back when flights weren't always listed on public boards. They met in Washington, D.C., at a private reception tied to defense consulting contracts. She was sharp, educated, well-connected through her father's policy firm. She noticed him immediately, not because he tried to be seen, because he didn't. He stood in corners, watched conversations instead of dominating them, didn't over-explain, didn't laugh loudly, didn't drink too much. Men like that draw attention without asking for it. Julie approached first. You look bored, she said lightly, holding a glass of champagne. I'm not, he replied. You're scanning. A small pause. You're observant. I like interesting things. And I'm interesting. You're not participating, she said. You're evaluating. He didn't deny it. She liked that. Liked that he didn't waste words trying to charm her. Julie thrived in intensity. Power dynamics fascinated her. And Bruno, back then, carried a different kind of weight. He traveled often, spoke little about assignments, answered calls at odd hours, and stepped away without explanation. She didn't ask for details. She liked the mystery, liked the edge of it. You're dangerous, she once told him in a hotel suite overlooking Georgetown. He looked at her calmly. Everyone is, in the right context. That answer made her smile. Because she didn't want safety. She wanted proximity to something sharp. Their relationship burned hot, fast, physical chemistry layered with adrenaline, late-night calls, unexpected departures, tension that never fully settled. But intensity without stability eventually cracks. Julie loved the version of Bruno who disappeared on classified trips, who carried secrets, who operated in gray zones. But when he began shifting, when he left government operations and founded his private security firm, she felt it. The edge dulled. The unpredictability decreased. He started building structure, routine, legitimacy. You're domesticating yourself, she told him once during dinner in Arlington. I'm evolving. That sounds like surrender. He watched her carefully. Or maturity. She didn't like that word. Maturity implied something was being left behind, and what she loved about him was tied to risk. You're less interesting like this, she said quietly. He didn't argue. He just leaned back in his chair. And you're less stable when there's no chaos, he replied. That was the beginning of the end, because Julie didn't want stable. She wanted the version of Bruno who could walk into a room and command it without raising his voice, who carried weight without explanation. She mistook discipline for coldness, mistook growth for loss. So when he chose a different path, she didn't follow. She stepped away. But stepping away isn't the same as letting go. And Julie never liked losing something she once possessed. Months passed. Then a year. Then more. Julie dated other men, lawyers, consultants, one tech executive with an impressive portfolio and zero edge. They bored her. Too predictable, too eager, too impressed by her. None of them had that quiet calculation Bruno carried in his eyes. None of them shifted rooms by simply standing in them. Late at night, she would scroll through archived photos she still hadn't deleted. Images from trips, a blurred shot of him near an airstrip, a candid capture of him adjusting cufflinks before a formal event. He rarely smiled fully. That restraint had once fascinated her. She told herself she didn't miss him. She missed the intensity, the access, the feeling of being close to something powerful. When she heard through mutual connections that he had built a successful private security firm in Atlanta, she felt something tighten in her chest. He wasn't floundering. He wasn't regretful. He was thriving, structured, controlled, and worse, content. That unsettled her more than anything. One evening at a high-profile fundraiser in DC, she overheard someone mention his name. Bruno? Yes, I heard he's settled in Atlanta now. Serious relationship. Serious. The word scraped. She kept her expression neutral. Who? She asked casually. A nurse, I think. Works at Northside. Julie nodded slowly. Later that night, alone in her apartment, she searched. It didn't take long. Public photos from hospital events, community outreach programs. There Lily was. Natural curls, poised smile, not flashy, not trying. And Bruno beside her, looking different, not sharper, softer. His gaze rested on Lily with something Julie had never received. Warmth, not adrenaline, not hunger, warmth. Julie stared at the screen. That's not you, she whispered, because the man she knew thrived in complexity, in calculated risk, in power plays. This version, this one looked grounded, anchored. She didn't like it. Not because Lily was beautiful, because Lily was steady, and steady changes men. Julie leaned back in her chair, thought carefully. She wasn't irrational. She wasn't impulsive. She understood systems, understood leverage. She still had connections. Contractors who once intersected with Bruno's former world. Information flowed quietly in certain circles. And Julie knew something important. Bruno's past didn't vanish when he left it. It lingered in networks, databases, people who remembered. She didn't want him back for love. That would be simpler. She wanted proof that the dangerous version still existed. Proof that Lily hadn't replaced something fundamental. Proof that he hadn't truly changed. Because if he had, then Julie hadn't just lost a man. She'd lost access to power. And that was harder to accept. She closed her laptop slowly. Breathing measured. No tears. No dramatic collapse. Just calculation. If Lily was the new center of his world, then Lily was the pressure point. And Julie knew exactly how to find pressure points. Julie didn't move immediately. She never did. Emotion first, then analysis, then action. A week after seeing those photos of Bruno and Lily together, she made a call she hadn't made in years. Ethan, she said smoothly when he answered. It's been a while. On the other end, a pause. Julie. That's unexpected. I prefer strategic timing. A quiet chuckle. Ethan worked cybersecurity compliance for a private medical data firm contracted by multiple hospitals across the Southeast, including facilities in Atlanta. She didn't ask directly. She never did. They talked about consulting opportunities, about data privacy expansions, about how systems sometimes flagged anomalies in patient records. How secure are cross-state access points? She asked lightly. Very, he replied. Unless you know where the audit trails thin. She smiled faintly. Hypothetically, he echoed. 3 days later, an encrypted file landed in her inbox. Minimal. Clean. No names in subject lines, just coded identifiers and timestamps. Julie opened it slowly. Scanned. There it was. Northside Hospital, Atlanta. Employee patient file. Early pregnancy panel confirmation. 6 weeks. Patient name. Lily Thompson. Julie stared at the screen. For a moment she didn't move, not because she was shocked, because the implications settled slowly. Pregnant. Bruno wasn't just dating her, he was building with her. Foundation-level building. That meant permanence. That meant legacy. Julie leaned back in her chair. Her breathing changed. Subtle. Measured. Pregnant. He hadn't built permanence with her. Not because she couldn't have. Because he hadn't chosen to. That distinction mattered. Her mind replayed old conversations. "You don't think long-term," he had told her once. "I think strategically," she corrected. "You think in outcomes," he said, "not stability." She had laughed then. Stability bored her. But now she watched a nurse in Atlanta quietly step into the future he never offered her. Julie closed the laptop halfway, then opened it again. As if the word might disappear. It didn't. Pregnant. She pressed her lips together. This wasn't about jealousy over affection. This was about displacement, replacement, about seeing a man who once thrived in operational risk choose domestic life. And worse, choose it with someone who didn't even understand the world he came from. She whispered to the empty room, "You don't even know who you're with," not as a warning, as a critique. Because Lily saw the calm version, the controlled version. She had never seen the version who made split-second decisions under pressure, who moved through classified environments without flinching, who understood leverage in ways most civilians never would. Julie closed the laptop slowly. This wasn't emotional anymore. This was strategic. If Lily became permanent, Bruno would fully detach from the world Julie once shared with him. And that world, that network, still existed, still breathed, still remembered him. She stood, walked to the window of her DC apartment, looked out at the city lights. "Let's see," she murmured softly, "how permanent this really is. Jealousy is loud when it's wounded, quiet when it's calculated." Julie preferred quiet. She didn't storm into Atlanta, didn't call Bruno, didn't post vague messages online. She reached into older contact lists, men who once operated in contracting spaces adjacent to Bruno's former assignments, private contractors, logistics intermediaries, people who owed her favors from back-channel introductions. One of them answered on the second ring. "Didn't expect to hear from you again," he said. "I don't waste connections," she replied. A brief exchange of pleasantries. Then, "I need information." On Bruno. Silence. "Why?" "Because I'm curious." That man left that world. Julie smiled faintly. Worlds don't release people that easily. A pause. "What exactly are you asking for?" "Exposure points." Another silence. Longer. "You're playing with something bigger than curiosity," he said carefully. "I'm not playing." Her tone cooled slightly. "I just want to remind him of context." "Context?" "Yes." The man exhaled. "He has enemies. I'm aware. Some of them never got closure." Julie let that settle. Closure. That word lingered. She didn't want him dead. She didn't want a war. She wanted disruption. Pressure. A crack in the calm life he was building. Nothing fatal, she clarified quietly. Just a reminder. The man hesitated. "You know, once something moves, it's hard to control." She stared at her reflection in the window. "I don't need control," she said softly. "I need impact." Another pause. "I'll see what can be stirred." She ended the call. Her heart wasn't racing. She wasn't shaking. She sat down at her desk again and opened Lily's file once more. 6 weeks. Early enough that even Lily might not know yet. That detail mattered, because surprise amplifies instability. Julie wasn't cartoonish. She wasn't reckless. She understood consequences, but she also understood leverage. If Bruno had truly changed, if he had buried the version of himself that moved through risk like second nature, then a small shock would expose it. And if he reacted the way she suspected, if that old intensity resurfaced, then she would know. He hadn't transformed. He had suppressed. And suppressed parts don't disappear. They wait. Julie closed her laptop fully this time, breathing even. Decision made. This wasn't about destroying Lily. Not personally. Lily was symbolic. A representation of a future Julie had once assumed was hers. This was about testing Bruno. Testing whether the man she knew was truly gone. Or merely dormant. And somewhere in Atlanta, unaware, Lily finished a shift at Northside. unaware that a decision made hundreds of miles away had just shifted the air around her life. By the time Lily checked the clock for the third time, it was already past 7:30 p.m. Her second shift had bled into the first. One nurse called out sick. Another stayed late but had a family emergency. And Lily, as usual, filled the gaps. Not because she was trying to be heroic, because someone had to. The pediatric wing had been heavy that day. A toddler with respiratory distress. An elderly woman in oncology whose daughter refused to leave her side. Paperwork stacked in quiet accusation near the nurse's station. By 8:15, her shoulders ached in that dull, deep way that doesn't scream. It just settles in. "You good?" Another nurse asked while logging vitals. Lily gave a small nod. "Yeah, just tired. Go home before you volunteer for another hour." A faint smile touched her lips. "I'm clocking out. I promise." She walked down the hallway one last time, checking rooms, adjusting blankets, whispering soft reassurances. When she entered room 214, the elderly oncology patient opened her eyes slowly. "You're still here?" the woman murmured. "For another minute. You work too much." Lily chuckled quietly. "Occupational hazard." The woman studied her face. "You look happy, though." Lily paused, just for a second, because that was new. Happy. She thought of Bruno, of the way he had looked at her on that rooftop, of the way he had said permanence like it scared him. Of rain against glass. Her lips softened. "Yeah," she admitted quietly. "I am." She didn't elaborate, didn't need to. When she finally removed her badge and clocked out, the fluorescent lights above the time station felt harsher than usual. She rolled her neck slowly. Inhale, exhale. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She didn't check it immediately. She walked toward the exit first. Automatic doors whooshing open. Evening air cool against her skin. The Atlanta sky deepening into navy. Only then did she glance at the screen. And her tiredness shifted slightly. "Bruno, dinner tonight. Wear something that makes you look at me the way you do when you're pretending not to smile." She stopped walking. Just for a moment. Read it again. A soft sound escaped her. That man. He had a way of sounding composed even in text. Controlled flirtation. No emojis. No exaggeration. Just precision. She typed back slowly. "You're assuming I'll pretend." 3 dots appeared almost instantly. She rolled her eyes. Of course he was watching his phone. "Bruno, you always pretend for 3 seconds." She shook her head, smiling now despite the ache in her back. 3 is generous. A pause. She could almost see him considering his response. "Bruno, I'll pick you up at 9. Don't argue." She stared at that last line. Don't argue. There was something almost territorial in it. Not possessive. Just decisive. She typed carefully. "I'm not something you schedule." She waited. Heartbeat steady. 3 dots again. "Bruno, I know. I'm asking." Her smile softened. That adjustment mattered. 9 works, she replied. She slipped her phone back into her pocket and started walking toward the parking lot. Her steps were slower now, less mechanical. She imagined what she might wear. Something simple. He preferred understated. Not because he demanded it, because he noticed details. She pictured him arriving. Hands in pockets, eyes scanning, always scanning. She felt warmth spread through her chest. It was subtle, but it was real. She didn't know about the encrypted file in DC, didn't know about calls placed to old contacts, didn't know her name had moved quietly through systems she'd never touched. She only knew she was tired, and someone was waiting for her. She adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder. The parking lot wasn't empty. Cars scattered in uneven rows. A few employees lingering near the entrance. One woman laughing loudly into her phone. A security guard near the far gate scrolling absently. Normal. Ordinary. She reached into her bag for her keys. And that's when the air changed. Not visibly. Not dramatically, just a small shift, like when birds go silent before a storm. She didn't notice it consciously, but her body did. A vehicle idled near the edge of the lot, engine low, unremarkable. She kept walking. Her phone buzzed again. She almost ignored it, but she glanced down briefly. Another message from Bruno. Bruno. Actually, wear the green dress, the one from the gala. She stopped mid-step. That dress. She hadn't realized he remembered. A warmth rose to her cheeks. You notice everything, she murmured to herself. She started typing back, and that's when it happened. The message was half-typed. Your observe. A crack split the air. Sharp. Precise. Not thunder. Not construction. Not random. Her body reacted before her mind could interpret it. There was no cinematic slow motion, no dramatic spin, just impact. A force slammed into her side. Hot, violent, disorienting. Her breath left her in a small, confused gasp. What? The phone slipped from her hand, clattered against pavement. She looked down instinctively. Her scrubs were darkening, spreading. Her brain refused the information. That's not possible. She staggered one step backward. Another. Sound distorted around her. Someone shouting. A car door slamming. Tires squealing. Her ears rang. She pressed her palm against her side. Warm. Too warm. She blinked rapidly, trying to recalibrate. Stay upright. The thought was mechanical. Training. Years of emergency response translating into instinct. Pressure. Apply pressure. Her fingers trembled as she pressed harder against the wound. Her vision flickered at the edges. No, she whispered. Not fear. Correction. No. Her knees weakened. The asphalt tilted. A second sound. Maybe another shot, maybe an echo. She couldn't tell. Her breathing shortened. Shallow. Fast. She tried to inhale deeper. Air wouldn't cooperate. Someone ran toward her. Footsteps pounding. Call 911. I am. She looked up at the sky. Navy blue fading into night. Strange what the mind notices. She thought about the green dress. About 9 o'clock. About Bruno's precise text. A flash of irritation crossed her mind. He's going to be upset I'm late. The thought almost made her laugh. But no sound came out. Her legs gave out. The world dropped. Concrete rushed toward her. Then, arms caught her before her head hit. Voices overlapping. Oh my God. Stay with me. I work here. Move. I work here. She tried to focus on the face above her. A nurse from ICU. Crying. Lily, stay awake. I am, she murmured, but her voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. She tried to lift her head. Pain flared. Sharp. Blinding. Her body trembled. Shock creeping in. This isn't random. That thought cut through everything else. Clear. Cold. This wasn't random. Across the city, Bruno's phone vibrated again. He glanced at it, expecting her reply. Instead, he saw his operations director's name flash across the screen. He frowned slightly, answered immediately. Yes. The voice on the other end wasn't composed. Sir, there's been a shooting outside Northside. His body stilled. And the victim matches Lily's description. Silence. Bruno didn't blink, didn't react outwardly. Say that again. She just clocked out. Witnesses confirmed. He felt something in his chest constrict. Not panic. Compression. Status. She's alive. A breath. But it's bad. The velvet ring box slid from his fingers onto the passenger seat. Soft thud. His gaze flicked to it briefly. Then back to the road ahead. Alive. Alive meant possibility. He started the engine. Didn't slam the gas. Didn't jerk the wheel. He drove. But something ancient inside him shifted. Not emotion. Function. The version of him that mapped exits automatically. That identified patterns in chaos. That measured response times in seconds. That version opened its eyes. Send me camera feeds, he said calmly into the phone. All surrounding blocks, parking lot angles, traffic cams within a 2-mile radius. Already pulling. Good. His voice didn't rise. It thinned, precision sharpening around it. Atlanta traffic moved normally around him. Headlights blinking, pedestrians crossing, a bus passing, life unchanged. Inside his car, nothing was normal. What do we have? Gunshot wound, right side, pulse, thready. Lily felt hands lifting her onto a stretcher, straps tightening across her chest. The ceiling of the ambulance replacing the sky. Bright, too bright. She tried to speak again. Phone. What? My phone. It's okay, someone assured her. We've got you. The doors slammed shut. Sirens roared. The vehicle lurched forward. Inside, chaos felt organized. Commands. Vitals. Oxygen mask placed over her face. She tried to push it away. I can... No talking. She wanted to argue. She always argued when patients panicked. Now she understood why they resisted. Because surrender feels like loss. Her vision dimmed further, edges darkening. Stay awake. She focused on that. Just that. Stay awake. Bruno reached the hospital entrance in under 8 minutes. He didn't remember the drive, only the destination. He stepped out of the car before it fully settled into park. Walked quickly, not running. He doesn't run. Hospital doors slid open. Bright lights. Controlled environment. Sir, you can't... Where is she? His voice cut clean. Are you family? Yes. No hesitation, no qualification. They led him down the corridor. He scanned everything automatically. Exits, security positions, staff movement, patterns. Someone had chosen that parking lot. Chosen that timing. That wasn't random. He filed the thought away. Because first, Lily. A doctor stepped out of a trauma bay. She's stable for now. For now. The words landed like a warning. But there's another factor. There it was again. Another factor. His body went very still. What factor? She's pregnant. The hallway seemed to narrow. Pregnant. He blinked once. Just once. She didn't tell me. It's early. She may not have known. His hand curled briefly at his side. Not rage. Not yet. Something colder, measured, calculated. Someone had shot a nurse. A woman walking to her car. A woman carrying his child. The part of him Lily hadn't fully seen. The part trained in controlled response. Didn't erupt. It aligned, targeting pathways, mapping retaliation. And for the first time since leaving that former life, he didn't feel conflict about stepping back into it. He felt clarity. Pause right here. What would you do if someone targeted the person you love? If they didn't just hurt her, but risked your child too? Would you trust the system? Or would something inside you wake up? Comment below. Tell me honestly. And if this story is pulling you in, like the video, because engagement pushes this message further than you think. We're not done, not even close. Hospitals have a smell, clean, sterile, almost artificial in their attempt to contain chaos. Bruno noticed it the second the doors parted at Northside Hospital, Atlanta. His shoes struck the polished floor in controlled steps. Not rushed, never rushed, but fast enough that the receptionist barely finished her sentence before he passed. Sir, you... Trauma intake, he said. She blinked. Are you... Yes, that word again. No explanation, no qualification. He moved down the corridor. The fluorescent lighting reflected off the floor in sharp lines. Too bright, too exposed. He hated environments where he couldn't control perimeter. 2 private security contractors from his firm were already stationed near the emergency wing. They straightened immediately when they saw him. Sir, what do we know? Single shot. No casing recovered yet. Shooter vehicle, possibly dark sedan. Plates obscured. His jaw tightened slightly. Footage. Pulling from parking lot and street cams. Good. His voice was calm. But the air around him shifted. The nurse who'd been pressing gauze against Lily earlier stood against the wall now, hands trembling. He saw her, recognized the shock in her posture. He walked over. How long was she outside before transport? Less than 3 minutes, she whispered. She stayed conscious. Of course she did. She asked for her phone, the nurse added softly. That detail pierced through his composure. Phone. She'd been texting him. He glanced briefly toward the trauma bay doors. Closed, red light above them glowing. He exhaled once. Controlled. The part of him trained in crisis began layering information. Timing, location, angle of shot, parking lot layout, line of sight from possible vehicle positions. This wasn't random violence. No robbery attempt, no confrontation. Single, clean shot. Exit route already planned. Precision. He felt something old rising inside his chest. Not anger. Focus. The kind that quiets everything unnecessary. A doctor emerged finally, mask lowered, expression professional. She's stable for now, he began. For now, Bruno nodded once. And the baby? The doctor blinked. You know. Yes. The doctor hesitated. It's early. 6 weeks, approximately. There was no direct abdominal trauma, but we'll need monitoring. 6 weeks. His mind recalculated. She might not have even known yet. He imagined her finding out like this. In pain. In shock. A muscle in his jaw flickered. Can I see her? Briefly. He stepped toward the doors. Paused for just a fraction of a second. Not hesitation. Containment. Then he went in. The trauma room was quieter now. Machines beeping in steady rhythm. Lily lay pale against white sheets, and 4-line taped to her arm. Oxygen cannula beneath her nose, her curls pulled back loosely, bandaging visible along her side. He stepped closer, slowly, like approaching something fragile, which was ironic, because Lily was anything but fragile. He stood at her bedside, looked at her, really looked, and something inside him tightened. Not visibly, internally. You scared me, he murmured quietly. No response. She was still under sedation. The doctor re-entered briefly, tablet in hand. We ran additional panels while she was under, he said softly. Bruno nodded. I need clarity. The doctor hesitated slightly. There's no evidence the pregnancy was compromised at this time. At this time. Bruno absorbed the phrasing. But stress can complicate early development, the doctor continued. We'll need to monitor hormone levels over the next 40 to 8 hours. Bruno's gaze never left Lily's face. She doesn't know, he said quietly. It's possible she suspected, but no confirmation was recorded in her file. He exhaled through his nose. She was texting me, he said, almost to himself. The doctor paused. About dinner, Bruno added. Something almost like sympathy crossed the doctor's expression. We'll let her wake naturally. It may take another hour. Bruno nodded. The doctor left. The room returned to steady mechanical sounds. Bruno pulled a chair closer. Sat, leaning forward slightly, forearms resting on his thighs. He studied the monitor readings. Pulse, oxygen, stable. His mind replayed the sequence again. Parking lot, angle, timing. Julie's name flickered briefly through his thoughts. Not as a conclusion. As a possibility, he dismissed nothing. He closed his eyes briefly. Just one breath. Then he looked at Lily's abdomen. 6 weeks. He had been on his way to propose. Ring still sitting in his car. He almost laughed under his breath. Life had rearranged itself in seconds. He reached out carefully, brushed his fingers lightly against her hand. Warm. He swallowed. You were going to tell me in your own time, he murmured. A small pause. I should have told you everything first. The admission hung quietly in the sterile air. Because now, the cost of withholding wasn't theoretical. It was bleeding. He leaned back slightly in the chair, waited, for her to wake, for the next fracture to come, because he knew the external threat wasn't the only battle he was about to face. The first thing she noticed was the sound, a steady beep, consistent, annoyingly consistent. Her eyelids felt heavy, like lifting them required negotiation. She tried anyway. Light flooded in, too bright. She blinked once, twice. The ceiling above her was unfamiliar. White panels, small cracks in one corner. She tried to shift. Pain answered immediately. Sharp, controlled, but present. A soft sound escaped her lips. The chair beside her moved instantly. Lily. That voice, low, grounded. She turned her head slightly. It took effort, but she did it. Bruno. He looked different. Not disheveled, not frantic. Just tight. You look like you fought a war, she murmured weakly. His lips curved faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. You scared me. She studied him. Even through the haze, even through the medication, she noticed things. His posture was too straight, his jaw too set. You're doing it again, she whispered. Doing what? Shutting down. He didn't respond immediately, because she was right. He reached for her hand instead. You're stable, he said quietly. The doctors handled it fast. She blinked slowly. Memory returned in fragments. Parking lot. Text. A crack in the air. I got shot. He nodded once. Yes. She let that sit. There was no dramatic gasp. No tears. Just processing. She shifted slightly. Winced. His hand tightened instinctively around hers. Careful. She looked at him again. There was something else. Something he wasn't saying. You're holding something back, she murmured. A pause. Yes. She exhaled slowly. Okay. That word wasn't agreement. It was preparation. He leaned closer. There's something you need to know. Her eyes sharpened slightly. About the shooting? In part. He hesitated. And that hesitation told her everything. It wasn't just about the shooting. Just say it, she whispered. The door opened quietly. The doctor stepped in. Good to see you awake, he said gently. How are you feeling? Like I lost a fight with pavement, she muttered. A faint smile flickered across the doctor's face. That's fair. He glanced at Bruno briefly. Have you told her? Bruno shook his head once. Not yet. The doctor turned back to Lily. There's another factor we discovered during trauma evaluation. Her brows pulled together slightly. What factor? A small pause. You're pregnant. Silence. Not dramatic. Just complete. Lily blinked. Once. Twice. What? Approximately 6 weeks. She stared at the ceiling. Then back at Bruno. You knew? He nodded slowly. They told me when I arrived. Her breathing changed. Not panicked. Deeper. Slower. Pregnant. The word felt distant. Unreal. She placed her free hand instinctively over her abdomen. A small trembling motion. I didn't know. I know, he said quietly. She swallowed. Tears didn't fall, but her eyes glassed slightly. Pregnant. Shot. Hospital bed. The sequence didn't align. The doctor continued explaining monitoring plans, hormone levels, observation, follow-up imaging. She nodded automatically. He left after a few minutes. The room quieted again. Lily turned her head toward Bruno slowly. Was this random? There it was. Direct. He held her gaze. No. Her breath stilled. No? No. She absorbed that. You think it's connected to you. It wasn't phrased as accusation. It was deduction. He didn't lie. Yes. The word settled between them. Heavy. Cold. She closed her eyes briefly. Not to escape. To think. When she opened them again, something had shifted. Not fear. Focus. Tell me, she said. He stood. Walked to the window briefly. Hands in his pockets. City lights visible beyond the glass. When he turned back toward her, his composure had adjusted. Less guarded. More deliberate. There was a time, he began slowly, when my work wasn't corporate. She watched him without interrupting. I operated in classified environments, he continued. International assignments, high-risk operations, government-adjacent. Her expression didn't change, just sharpened. You weren't just security, she said quietly. No, you were... what? He exhaled lightly. Strategic field operations, extraction, counter-threat mitigation. She processed the phrasing. You carried a weapon. Yes. You've killed... A pause. Yes. The word didn't shake, but it landed. She didn't recoil. She didn't gasp. She simply stared at him. How long? Years. And you left? Yes. Why? He hesitated. Because I was tired of operating without permanence. Her eyes flickered briefly at that word. Permanence. You left before we met, she said. Yes. But the people you dealt with, they don't always disappear. Silence filled the space. Machines continued their steady beeping. So, someone from that world came after you, she said quietly. That's my assessment, and I got caught in it. The sentence wasn't emotional. It was factual. He stepped closer. This wasn't meant for you. Her jaw tightened. That doesn't make it better. I know. She shifted slightly, pain flaring across her face. He moved instinctively to help. She held up her hand. Wait. He stopped. You don't get to decide what I can handle, she said softly. Not yelling. Not dramatic. Just clear. He stilled. I didn't tell you everything because I wanted to protect you, he replied. From what? From the weight of it. She let out a small, almost disbelieving breath. Well, that worked out beautifully. The sarcasm wasn't sharp. It was tired. You decided for me, she continued. You calculated my threshold without asking. He swallowed. I thought it would keep you safer. Safer than honesty. A quiet break entered her voice then. Just a small one. Because this wasn't just about bullets. It was about agency. I don't need you to sanitize your past, she said. I need you to trust me with it. He lowered his gaze briefly. I do trust you. Then why didn't you tell me? He searched for an answer that wasn't defensive. Because the truth was complicated. I didn't want you to look at me differently, he admitted. That was honest. She absorbed that. I already look at you differently, she whispered. A pause. You're the father of my child. The word father hung in the air. He closed his eyes briefly, just a fraction of a second. When he opened them again, something inside him had shifted. Less control, more vulnerability. I won't hide from you again, he said quietly. She studied him. Long, measured. You better not. Silence followed. Not comfortable, not broken. Just real, because the external threat was terrifying. But this fracture, this was personal. Trust once cracked doesn't shatter loudly. It shifts, and they both felt it, even as his fingers found hers again, even as she allowed it. The love was still there, but now it carried weight, responsibility, truth, and consequences. Lily slept lightly, monitors steady. Hospital security doubled without public explanation. Bruno didn't go home. He moved. Quietly, deliberately. From the hallway outside Lily's room, he made 3 calls. Not emotional calls, operational ones. Pull everything, he told his lead analyst. Parking lot feeds, adjacent street cameras, license plate recognition within a 5-mile radius. Yes, sir. Financial anomalies. Recent transfers into Atlanta through shell contractors. A pause on the other end. That's a wide net. Cast it. He hung up. Stared at the blank screen for a second. Someone had taken a shot in a hospital employee parking lot. Clean angle. Clean exit. No casing. Professional. He stepped into an unused consultation room and closed the door. Opened his laptop. Encrypted access. Private channels. He didn't reach into old government databases. Not yet. He started with contractors. Private security networks shared information more fluidly than law enforcement realized. He pulled up a familiar name. Marcus Hale, freelance logistics, used to coordinate transportation for sensitive movements during Bruno's former assignments. Marcus had left official contracts years ago, but men like Marcus didn't retire. They repositioned. Bruno typed one line. Need confirmation on recent out-of-network hires. Discretion required. 3 minutes later, a reply. You're back in it? He stared at the message. Back in it. I never left, he murmured under his breath. Another reply followed. Dark sedan, used in Atlanta yesterday. Driver linked to contract issued through Laird LLC in DC. DC. His eyes narrowed slightly. Laird LLC, shell structure. He traced the registration. First company registered in Delaware, second in Virginia, third in DC. He followed the chain manually, not because his system couldn't automate it, because he trusted his instincts more than algorithms. Third layer shell had a consulting front. He recognized the name of the legal firm managing filings, connected to policy advisory groups, connected to defense contracting circles, connected to Julie. He leaned back in the chair slowly. Not surprise, recognition. He opened another file. Payment timestamps, an initial deposit, followed by staggered microtransfers, structured to avoid flagging thresholds. Smart, but not flawless. One routing number remained constant across all layers. A private account he remembered from years ago, used to move discretionary funds during sensitive operations, not government. Private. He exhaled slowly. Julie didn't have the capacity to build something this clean alone. She could initiate. She could trigger. But this smelled older, deeper. He typed again. Who authorized the secondary payout? A delay this time. Longer. Then, you don't want that answer. His jaw tightened slightly. Send it. Another pause. Then, a single encrypted attachment. He opened it. A name. One he hadn't spoken aloud in years. Director Alan Crow, former oversight liaison during Bruno's classified assignments. A man who operated above official channels. A man who believed leverage was more valuable than loyalty. Bruno stared at the name. Cold realization settling in. Julie may have stirred something, but Crow had redirected it. This wasn't jealousy spiraling out of control. This was containment. Crow had likely seen movement. Julie probing old contacts. Julie accessing data. He would have flagged it, and instead of shutting it down, he escalated. He used it. A low exhale left Bruno's chest. Not anger. Not yet. Understanding. Lily wasn't the objective. She was proximity. A pressure point. The shooter wasn't sent to eliminate her. He was sent to provoke Bruno, to see how quickly he re-engaged, to test whether he would step back into operational mode. And he had. He closed the laptop slowly. Hands steady. Someone higher up wasn't threatened by his domestic life. They were threatened by his disengagement. Crow had always hated losing assets. Bruno wasn't supposed to retire. He was supposed to remain available, cullable, deployable. And now they had his attention. Julie answered on the third ring. Bruno. Her tone carried surprise, but not fear. Where are you? He asked. In DC. Restaurant on K Street. You're by the window. A pause. Then a small exhale. You're still dramatic. I'll be there in 2 hours. You're flying up here? No. He ended the call. 2 days later, after Lily was moved to a secure recovery floor under private watch, Bruno boarded a private charter. He didn't tell Lily details, only that he needed to confirm something. She watched him carefully before he left. You're going somewhere I don't like, she said quietly. Yes. Come back, whole. A pause. I will. But they both knew wholeness had already shifted. Julie was exactly where he expected. Corner table, black dress, minimal jewelry, controlled posture. She didn't stand when he approached. She studied him. You look tired, she said. I am. He remained standing for a moment, before sitting across from her. No pleasantries. You accessed a medical file. She didn't flinch. I access many files. Lily's. A small silence. You're accusing me. I'm confirming. She tilted her head slightly. You think I shot her? No. That answer surprised her. No. She echoed. You triggered something, he said calmly. But you didn't control it. Her fingers tightened slightly around her glass. I wanted to remind you who you are, she admitted softly. You did, and someone else decided to amplify it. She watched him carefully now. What are you talking about? You stirred old networks. Her eyes flickered briefly. Recognition. I was curious, she said. You were reckless. A faint crack appeared in her composure. You left without closure. That's not a justification. I didn't expect anyone to take a shot at her, he finished. Her face went pale. I didn't order that. I know. That unsettled her more than accusation would have. You're not angry with me? She asked quietly. He leaned forward slightly. I'm done underestimating you. But you weren't the architect. She swallowed. Who? He held her gaze. Crow. The name drained the remaining color from her face. That's impossible. No. Her breathing shifted. That man doesn't move without strategic gain. Exactly. She stared at him. You think he used me? Yes. A small, broken sound escaped her. Not sobbing. Recognition. I thought you'd react. Come back. I did, and he noticed. Yes. Silence thickened between them. Julie's voice softened. I never wanted her dead. She isn't. And the baby? He didn't answer immediately. She's pregnant, he said finally. Julie's eyes widened slightly. Pregnant. The weight of that settled heavily. I didn't know, she whispered. I know. For the first time, she looked smaller. Not physically. Strategically. I just wanted to test you, she murmured. You did. And now the wrong people know I'll re-engage. A pause. What does that mean? It means Lily wasn't the target. Her breath caught. Then who was? He didn't look away. I was. The restaurant noise faded into background blur. Julie's hands trembled slightly. The shooter was meant to provoke me, Bruno said evenly. To see if I'd respond. And you did. Yes. She leaned back slowly. Oh God. This isn't jealousy anymore, he continued. It's leverage. She shook her head faintly. Crow doesn't lose assets. I'm not his asset. You were... Past tense. She looked at him with something unfamiliar. Fear. What are you going to do? He stood, straightened his jacket. I'm going home. And after that, a pause. He looked at her one last time. If they want my attention, they have it. Julie swallowed. Bruno. He stopped. You opened a door, she whispered. You can't close it. He met her eyes. I don't intend to. And for the first time since leaving that former world, he wasn't being pulled back into it. He was stepping in by choice. Bruno didn't fly back to Atlanta immediately, not yet. There was one more thread to pull. Marcus Hale agreed to meet in a parking structure beneath a private aviation terminal outside DC. Concrete pillars, dim lighting. No cameras in the lower levels intentionally. Marcus leaned against a black SUV when Bruno approached. You look like hell, Marcus said quietly. I've been worse. A brief silence. You came back faster than I expected, Marcus added. I didn't come back. I was pulled. Marcus studied him carefully. You figured it out. Yes. Marcus nodded slowly. The original contract wasn't for her. Bruno's expression didn't shift. Details. Marcus glanced around out of habit. Initial instruction was surveillance only. Track your routine. Confirm response time. Response to what? Simulated disruption. Bruno's jaw tightened slightly. They wanted to see how quickly you re-engaged operational posture. And the shot. Marcus exhaled. That wasn't in the first draft. Then who altered it? Marcus hesitated. A flicker of discomfort. Secondary authorization came in 12 hours before execution. From Crow. Yes. Bruno's voice dropped lower. Why escalate? To guarantee your reaction. Silence stretched between them. Marcus continued. The contractor hired for surveillance wasn't meant to fire. He received updated instructions. Bruno stepped closer. Who delivered them? Marcus swallowed. Crow doesn't issue commands directly. He reroutes through intermediaries. The final instruction came from a Black Flag account. Bruno understood that phrase immediately. Black Flag. Unattributed, plausibly deniable. Was it a kill order? Bruno asked quietly. Marcus shook his head. No. Then what? A wound. Bruno's eyes sharpened. Specific. Yes. Cold realization settled in. They hadn't intended to kill Lily. They had intended to injure someone close enough to Bruno to force his return. To test his reaction. To measure his speed. To observe his posture. You were the objective, Marcus said softly. They needed to know if you'd re-engage without authorization. And now they know. Yes. The structure felt smaller suddenly. More confined. They crossed a line, Bruno said evenly. They don't believe in lines. Bruno nodded once. Is the shooter alive? Marcus looked away briefly. No. That landed. Crow doesn't leave variables breathing. Bruno absorbed that quietly. The contractor who pulled the trigger had already been eliminated, cleaned, no loose ends. This wasn't personal chaos. It was strategic containment. Julie's interference had triggered curiosity. Crow had escalated it into leverage. And now the board had shifted. Marcus stepped closer. Listen to me carefully. Crow doesn't move unless he believes he's losing control. I left. You left without permission. I don't work for him. In his mind, Marcus replied quietly, You never stopped. Silence. Bruno felt something inside him align again. Not rage. Calculation. They wanted to draw me out, he said. Yes. They succeeded. Yes. Marcus hesitated. You have two choices now. I know. Disappear completely. Or step back into visibility and redefine the terms. Bruno didn't answer, because the choice had already been made the moment Lily hit the pavement. Back in Atlanta, Lily stood carefully on the hospital balcony days later, fresh air brushing her face. Security discreetly positioned below. She leaned lightly against the railing, one hand resting unconsciously against her abdomen. 6 weeks, still fragile, still real. She heard footsteps behind her, turned slowly. Bruno. He looked composed. But she knew him better now. You found something, she said. Yes. She didn't ask how. She asked, Was it you? He stepped closer. No. Her breath eased slightly. Then, who? A former oversight director. She frowned faintly. From your past? Yes. She studied his face carefully. You're not surprised? No. Why? Because I underestimated how much leverage they believe they still have. She processed that. You're saying, this was a test. Yes, a test of what? Whether I would re-engage. And you did. He didn't deny it. Yes. She inhaled slowly. So I wasn't the target. No, a beat. You were. Silence. Wind moved lightly through her curls. She closed her eyes briefly, absorbing it. They used me to get to you. Yes. Her voice stayed steady. That doesn't make it better. I know. Another pause. What happens now? He looked out over the Atlanta skyline. Not as a romantic gesture. As assessment. They believe I'm still an asset, he said quietly. Callable. Deployable. And you're not. No. But now they've seen you move. Yes. She turned to face him fully. So what does that mean? It means the threat is bigger than jealousy. How big? He met her eyes. Federal level. The words hung heavy. This wasn't a bitter ex. This wasn't a rogue contractor. This was institutional, layered, protected. You can't just confront someone like that, she said softly. I won't. Then what? He hesitated, because the answer required balance. If I disappear, he said slowly, they win. And if you fight, they escalate. She exhaled quietly. Well, that's comforting. A faint, almost reluctant smile touched his mouth. I won't step back into that world the way they expect. She searched his face. What does that mean? It means I define the terms. And how exactly do you plan to do that? He stepped closer, lowered his voice. I build exposure, publicly. Carefully, she absorbed that. You're going to pull them into light. Yes. A long silence followed. Not fear. Wait. Because this wasn't about vengeance. It was about survival, protection, agency. She reached for his hand, held it. You don't get to disappear into war mode, she said softly. He nodded. I won't. You don't get to shut me out. I won't. She studied him, really studied him. This isn't about proving you're still dangerous, she added quietly. It's about making sure no one mistakes you for disposable. He felt that, deeply. I won't let them touch you again, he said. She didn't argue, but she corrected gently. Don't promise control you don't have. A small pause. Promise. Partnership. He swallowed once. Partnership. She nodded. Because the twist wasn't just that she wasn't the target. It was that the game wasn't personal anymore. It was structural. Power protecting power. Testing loyalty. Reclaiming assets. And somewhere above them, Director Alan Crowe believed he had reactivated something useful. He was wrong. Because Bruno wasn't stepping back into obedience. He was stepping into choice. And that changes everything. The call came just after midnight. Bruno was sitting in the dim light of the living room, laptop open but untouched. Lily was asleep in the bedroom, finally home from the hospital, moving carefully, healing slowly. His phone vibrated once. Marcus. He answered immediately. It's done, Marcus said quietly. Clarify. The shooter was found outside Richmond, execution style. No public link. Bruno closed his eyes briefly. So Crowe had cleaned the board. No loose pieces. No testimonies. No bargaining. Just silence. That was fast, Bruno murmured. It sends a message, Marcus replied. Yes, which is that no one moves without oversight. A pause. You're being watched, Marcus added. I know. He ended the call. Sat there in the dark. Shooter dead. No trial. No confession. No closure. This wasn't street-level retaliation. It was systemic containment. A warning, wrapped in efficiency. He rose quietly and walked toward the balcony of the condo. Atlanta shimmered below. Normal. Unbothered. He leaned against the railing, breathing steady. He had spent years living in environments where outcomes were calculated before action, where sacrifice was assessed like currency. Now that world had brushed against Lily, against their child, and he felt the pull, the instinct to re-enter fully, to counter-escalate, to expose Crowe aggressively, to remind them he wasn't disposable. But inside the bedroom, Lily shifted in her sleep. He heard it through the open door. Just a small movement, and it anchored him. He stepped back inside. She was sitting up now. Hair slightly messy. Eyes heavy but alert. You're not sleeping, she said softly. No. She watched him carefully. Something happened. He nodded once. The shooter is dead. Her brows pulled together. By who? Crowe's network. A small silence. So they're cleaning up. Yes. She absorbed that. And you? What about me? She tilted her head slightly. You look like you're deciding something. He hesitated. Because she was right. I can escalate, he admitted. I can make this painful for them. And what does that look like? Exposure. Counter-leverage. Pressure. And after that, he didn't answer immediately, because after that came escalation, and escalation rarely ends cleanly. She shifted her legs over the side of the bed slowly, ignoring discomfort. Bruno, He stepped closer. "I won't lose you to a war you already left," she said quietly. His jaw tightened. "This isn't about ego, I know. It's about safety." She studied him. "Protection isn't possession," she said softly. The words echoed something deeper. He felt it. "If you go back fully," she continued, "you won't come back the same." A long pause. "And I can't raise a child with a ghost." That landed. Hard. Because she wasn't accusing. She was telling the truth. He crouched slightly in front of her, hands resting lightly on her knees. "I don't want war," he said quietly. "Then don't choose it. But I won't let them think I'm available." "You don't have to," she replied. "You just have to be visible. Visible. Not reactive. Not retreating. Not aggressive. Present. Partnership." He exhaled slowly. The part of him trained to strike first receded, not erased, just contained. "I'm torn," he admitted. "I know." Between protector and husband, she reached up, placed her hand gently against his jaw. "You don't have to choose," she whispered. "You just have to define both." Silence settled between them. Heavy. Honest. He leaned into her touch. Just slightly. "I'm not running," he said finally. "Good, but I'm not disappearing into that world either." She nodded slowly. "That's better." The war wasn't external anymore. It was internal. And for the first time, he chose to fight that one first. Weeks passed. Security remained discreet but present. Medical follow-ups steady. Hormone levels stable. 6 weeks became 7. 7 became 8. One evening, as the sun dipped low over Atlanta, Lily stepped onto the balcony carefully, healing but cautious. The city glowed amber. She breathed in slowly. Still alive. Still here. Bruno joined her moments later. No dramatic entrance. Just presence. He stood beside her quietly. "You remember the night of the gala?" he said softly. She smiled faintly. "The green dress? Yes. You still owe me that dinner." He exhaled. "I was supposed to do this differently." She turned toward him slowly. "What?" He reached into his jacket pocket. Paused. Not because he was unsure, because the moment deserved breath. He opened the small velvet box. The ring caught the fading sunlight. Simple, elegant, intentional. "I was on my way to propose," he said quietly. Before the parking lot, her breath stilled. "You're serious?" "Yes." He stepped closer. "I don't want secrecy in our life," he continued. "Not from me. Not from anyone." Her eyes softened. "Well." A small smile touched her lips. "Life rarely follows plans." He almost laughed under his breath. "No." He slid the ring gently onto her finger. His hands steady. Her hand trembled slightly. Not fear, emotion. "You're choosing this knowing everything," he said. "Yes." "Knowing what my past carries." "Yes." A pause. "Knowing it may not always be quiet." She met his gaze. "I don't need quiet," she replied softly. "I need truth." He leaned forward, kissed her. Slow, certain, grounded. For a moment, everything felt still. Then, a distant boom echoed across downtown. Not close, but loud enough to shift air. She pulled back slightly. What was that? His phone buzzed immediately. Unknown number. He stared at it for half a second, then answered. Silence on the other end. Then a distorted voice. "You chose domestic life, Bruno." A pause. "That was your first mistake." Lily heard enough. Not every word, just enough. Her fingers tightened around his arm. He didn't look away from the skyline. The voice continued briefly. "You belong to us." Click. Call ended. The city below continued moving. Sirens faint in the distance now. Lily's voice was quiet. "Bruno." He looked at her slowly. Not panicked, not cold, just clear. "What did you bring into our life?" He inhaled, exhaled. Then, He powered off the phone, not declined, not silenced. Off. He turned fully toward her. I'm done running, he said. Not to Crow, not to the voice, to her. I'm not going back into shadows, he continued. If they want confrontation, they get it in daylight. Her eyes searched his. You're sure? Yes. No secret retaliation. No. No disappearing. No. He placed his hand gently over hers, over the ring. Protection without honesty destroys love, he said quietly. She nodded. And we're not destroying this. He shook his head once. No. The skyline behind them pulsed with ordinary life. Traffic lights changing, buildings glowing, sirens fading. The war hadn't vanished. Crow hadn't disappeared. The network still existed. But the choice had been made. Not love or war. Love with truth. And that changes the battlefield. If you believe love requires truth, comment truth over fear. If this story moved you, subscribe to Mr. Austin Love and Story Tales, where life's hardest lessons are told without filters. And share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because strength without honesty creates distance. But love with truth, that builds something no threat can erase, are told without filters. And share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because strength without honesty creates distance. But love with truth, that builds something no threat can erase.
If you enjoy American Love Stories, please consider subscribing and comment what you need next. And love you all from Mr. Austin.